Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the GallowgateShots YouTube channel. It's a very tough time to talk about Newcastle at the minute. Very grim, very dour. Nothing really to excite us. So I thought we'd spend a video just talking about Wolves, a team who had a pretty mammoth, monumental, feels like 2-year season last season. And they're looking like they're going from strength to strength, and it's a team who we can only sort of envy at the moment. We're going to discuss Wolves, so we need a Wolves fan, and he's joining us now. It's Gully from the Wolves Fancast. Gully, thanks for coming on.
No worries, Andy. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Mentioned Wolves' mammoth season. I think I'm right in saying it actually went on longer than a calendar year. Must have been quite a fun ride.
Yeah, it was. I guess we sit here as Wolves fans in the kind of position many clubs would love to be in, having had a bit of an adventure in Europe last season. It's odds law, though, that we managed to have a time in Europe when coronavirus hit, and
Yeah.
unfortunately weren't able to make games. I remember I had a ticket to go and watch us in Greece for the Olympiacos first leg, and we were told we couldn't travel, and really disappointing in certain points, but still amazing season. First time in 40 years we'd actually reached those kind of heights. And obviously, in my lifetime, for the first time, it was an amazing time to be a Wolves fan for sure.
Would you say it's the best season that Wolves have ever had? I don't know an awful lot about Wolves' past history, but in my recent memory, it seems like the best they've ever had.
Yeah, it's in living memory, yes. We were an incredible side back in the 40s and 50s, champions of the world, we were called at one point. I think we were pioneering friendlies with European teams that ended up launching the European Cup as a concept. So we were behind all of that, but for the last 30, 40 years, it certainly hasn't been that way in Wolverhampton. But yeah, I think the signs are that the club's on the way up, and we're progressing towards even bigger things going forward.
Yeah, and this seems like it's been a work in progress for quite a while. Nuno's obviously one of the more sort of long-term managers now in the league. How long's this sort of long-term plan been going? Because there's a time not long ago where Wolves were kind of a bit of a yo-yo club, and it seems like they really built the squad in the Championship, and then they've only come up when you've really been ready for it. Is that kind of been the plan?
Yeah, I think it all really started when Nuno arrived. We had a season with the new ownership prior to him turning up. The funny story was that when the new ownership came in, they had Julian Lopetegui lined up to sign on the dotted line as our new manager, and he was then offered the Spain job on the same evening.
All right,
and
wow.
he ended up taking the Spain job for obvious reasons. I don't know why he would want to stay in Spain instead of come over to Wolverhampton, but it could have been so very different. But we had a bit of a year of turmoil and a bit of transition as a result. And then Nuno became available off the back of leaving Porto, and the rest is history. Like you say, it's just been an upward trajectory ever since.
Yeah, I don't think he was a household name at all, really, was it? I think the only thing I knew is I believe he was Mourinho's goalkeeper when Mourinho was Porto manager, but he hadn't really done a lot as far as I'm concerned before Wolves. Is that right?
Yeah, not even Mourinho's number one. It was Mourinho's sub goalkeeper, so he's not.
Wow, you're Steve Harper. Yeah.
Exactly. He that's an apt description of him, I think. Yeah. But he says that time he spent a lot of his career on the bench. That's really stood him in good stead in terms of becoming a manager. He's been in that seat for a very long time beyond his own coaching career. But like you say, he's not the most reputable of managers prior to his arrival at Wolves. He had managed at Valencia and Porto, which in their own countries are absolutely, massive jobs. But in terms of, coming to the consciousness of Premier League fans, it wasn't too much to be said for him. But he certainly made his mark. He's certainly one of the most well thought of coaches in the Premier League at the moment. And he's always been linked to bigger and better jobs, obviously.
Yeah, he's always up there in the conversation, isn't he? As there's Bielsa this year, but then Klopp and those managers, he's up there as one of the better managers in the league, and very far away from where Steve Bruce is. But I'm going to stay away from that topic because we've talked it to death on our own channel.
You say that. I mean, if you go back over the last couple of seasons with our fixtures with Newcastle, we have, you seem to have fared pretty well against us. So
we have done all right. The one that sticks in mind is there was one where Willy Bolly basically assaulted Perez in the last minute and scored a last minute header. and it never. I don't think it was any VAR at that point. It was like an elbow in his face, or was it on the keeper? I
It
don't
was
remember.
Dubravka, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's something that we're still bitter about now.
Oh, if I'm a Wolves fan, Dubravka should be taking everything there. He's gone soft on this one,
Yeah,
unfortunately for me.
that's one of those, isn't it, where we all say it's a blatant red card, and you all say completely fair goal, completely fair. But yeah, it's just one of those, isn't it? The Mammoth season, the marathon season, whatever you want to call it. I've spoken to Wolves fans last season, and they said one of your only major issues really was the lack of the big squad. You've kind of got your first 11 and a couple of bench players, and that's it. Is there a risk that that's still an issue now, and the fatigue from last season is going to carry over?
I wouldn't have called it an issue. It's only an issue if you then start to pick up injuries and players need to be replaced essentially from the starting 11. And what we did have last season, especially in the second half, was a consistent starting 11 without too many interruptions. So, you can pad out your squad, but then if those kind of higher quality substitutions aren't making getting on the pitch, what it means is you're getting a bit of disharmony within the squad. People start to kick up a fuss, and that's what Nuno tries to avoid. What we have done, to be fair, is increase the quality of the 7 non-starters in the matchday squad this season with the players that we brought in. We've got the likes of Kiana Herver from Liverpool, Vitinha from Porto, Fabio Silva's our record signing now at 18 years old, and they all point towards if we do need to change something within a game, we've got a bit more of an option from the bench. It wasn't the most inspiring choices last season.
No, it's. I think people got slightly worried at the start of the window when you let Matt Doherty go, and it seemed like that was for absolutely peanuts. But then all of a sudden, you picked up these extra players. You've got this incredible recruitment where I'm sure the guy, does he know the agents, or he's in with all these Portuguese players? Because obviously it's a common joke that it's just the Portugal squad without Ronaldo, but there must be some reason why there's such a Portuguese contingent there. They all seem to do really well.
I've no idea what you're talking about, Andy, and we'll just push that under the carpet if you don't.
Right, okay, yeah, cut that out.
No,
Yeah.
just to address the point, it's something that's worked for us. Look, it started in the Championship. We were bringing in players under the George Mendes stable, shall we say? Ruben Neves was signed for us in the Championship. Diogo Jota
that was
came
ridiculous
in,
there. Yeah,
and it's now.
Yeah,
and Jota was joined, who is now playing for the Champions. An incredible footballer as well. So it's something that's if it hadn't worked, I'm sure they would have done something about it and changed tack. But why would you when we have had 2 consecutive 7th place finishes and are on the lookout to try and break into the top 6 now with the strategy that we've had in place and our new third kit as well.
Is this the white one with the strange blip?
This is the absolute rip off of the Portugal strip.
Oh yeah, you did just flat out admit that you were Portugal, yeah.
Yeah, against Leeds, we wore it on Monday. If you haven't seen it yet,
yeah, I'm thinking of that other one where the guy took the piss and basically wore a carrier bag with a white wolf shirt over the top and said, "I've that is not a nice kit. I'm not gonna lie, it's awful."
No, don't worry, it's not in my wardrobe. Yeah.
No, I don't blame you at all. I mean, to be fair, Newcastle haven't been blessed with many nice kits recently because Puma are just, bargain basement kits. But we're meant to change soon. We'll see.
How badly wrong can you get black and white stripes?
Well, they try and be too fancy, or they try and add little like spikes, or they make really fat stripes instead of just saying skinny. So this year it's quite nice because it's just skinny stripes with the red number on the back. That's all you need to do. But they always try and, instead of just giving us the nice template kit, do something really quirky with us. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But it's just the way it is, isn't it? I mean, I think your kit's lovely. You mentioned about recruitment there. You also have probably my favourite striker in the league that isn't a Newcastle player, which is Jimenez, and he's been that sort of stalwart player in your team that sums up everything you guys do. Even when you're out of the game, he's there and he scores, and you seem to just find ways to win. So, what would you say is a realistic target for Wolves moving forward? Is it just to keep trying to find that consistency and getting into Europe? Obviously, it feels like this is the first Thursday night Wolves aren't playing for forever. So surely that's the intention, is to do that more and more, I presume.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, we should be looking, having not got into Europe, unfortunately, for the second time this season, at really hammering hard at the Premier League and trying to push into that top 6. I think when you're looking at a game every week, there's no excuse there. And in theory, we've strengthened the squad. The starting 11, maybe not so much, but when you're bringing in the likes of Nelson Semedo,
I like him as well.
who is a Champions League footballer for the best part of his career so far, that's the ambition that we look at, and I'm sure he's not come to the club to sit in 7th place for the next couple of years. So that's got to be the aim.
Yeah, and there's obviously been a lot of talk about that. You were saying that you want to break into the top 6, the big 6, and there's been seemingly a massive push from the quote unquote top 6 to try and prevent that. There's been a lot of talk about Newcastle's takeover and that was the big 6 trying to defend their position. Wolves and Leicester are probably 2 teams that are really trying to upset the apple cart in terms of the big clubs at the minute. So do you see this whole project big picture and this big power play by the top clubs? Do you think Wolves have been influential in that, because they're obviously getting involved in 5 years ago it was always just Chelsea, Man United, Man City, and now you've got teams like Wolves and Leicester sniffing around the big boys. Do you think they see you guys as a threat?
If I was at that end of the table and there were riches, if I was a businessman and there were riches to kind of be gained from that kind of thing, I'm sure you would be pursuing it. We're owned by an investment company. If we were one of those teams in the big 6, I'd 100% guarantee we'd be part of that conversation.
Do the same thing, yeah.
To try and increase the value of the club, look at expanding our fan base and looking to gain from whatever they might be looking to gain from. But this is the Premier League. It's the product is what it is for the 20 clubs that participate every single season. It's not just about 6 teams, and I'm sure a franchise style league would soon get quite boring. Just because.
Well, UEFA admitted that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they because there's talk about this European Super League as well, and UEFA just said it would be boring, which is true. Yeah. That's just what you do on FIFA. You just play, Barca versus Real every week, but it's not fun. Sometimes the best games are Burnley versus West Brom, and you never expect it. So it's interesting.
I guess we're talking from the perspective of we're match-going fans. We're local to the clubs that we support. There's a whole world out there with fans based overseas who will never necessarily understand where we're coming from, but we don't really understand where they're coming from.
No, that's a good point.
I watch, as an example, I watch the IPL, cricket IPL, and I watch my team, Kings 11 Punjab. It's the same system, 8 teams every single year. The players kind of rotate around through the draft and things. That's still a brilliant tournament to watch.
It's just not right for football.
I'm an overseas fan though at the end of the day, and I still get to experience and get the enjoyment out of that system. So there's different perspectives here that we might not necessarily appreciate.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that people haven't necessarily considered, because I'm a big cricket fan. I've followed the IPL more this year, and there is something really great about just watching the best players play against each other all the time. And I think you've got a good balance with something like the NBA, where you've got, the big teams can only be the big teams for a few years, and then they kind of have to chop and change. So there's a conversation. There's a conversation to be had. I just think football isn't really broken in terms of the structure and the leagues. Obviously, money needs to be distributed down better. And the Premier League offered this olive branch to the EFL, didn't they? Where they say, look, if you agree to this, we'll dish out all this money to the Championship and League One. And it was clearly they didn't really mean it. It was just a way for them to get a bit more power. It's interesting. It's interesting anyway, but we'll see how it goes. I do think you guys you can tell there's a clear plan with Wolves, and I think you will do well. This year it's been more of a sporadic start. You've had a few scruffy 1-0 wins, but you're still finding yourselves doing okay. What do you think you need to do to make this 3 wins on the bounce against Newcastle?
Interestingly, I think what we tried to do against West Ham was really play on the front foot, and we ended up kind of shooting ourselves in the foot as a result, and got slapped about on the break by Mikel Antonio. I don't think that's the wrong approach to take. We just didn't execute it very well. The last 2 games against Fulham and Leeds, we've sat back a little bit more and just pinched a goal on the break, as we had done kind of for the last 2 years in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But I think it's time, to actually start stamping our authority on games and dominating possession and trying to create chances by camping teams in the final third. And that's what Nuno's trying to do, I think, slowly. Not at the moment, anyway.
Yeah, and I think Newcastle is the perfect guinea pig to do that against, to be honest, because we just don't keep the ball. We can't string two passes together. Our tactic, if you want to call it that, at the minute is essentially try not to lose and hope St. Maximin scores. That's basically the top and bottom of it. So I think we had the worst possession stat in Europe at one point last season. We're basically bottom of every single attacking metric. So I can't really see this going any other way other than if Wolves do what I have seen them do in a few recent games where they seem to be a bit blunt. But do you think Wolves do still have the firepower this year? And do you think it's just a case of just a bit of a bad run of games?
I'll be honest. I've had questions over that having let go of Jota and Doherty. That's quite a lot of goals lost from the team.
Mm.
Especially when you consider
Well, Doherty
Doherty.
just stood on the penalty spot the whole game, didn't he? Never defended, which was
Yeah,
great from fantasy football point of view, but never used to actually to help his team. I don't think.
but yeah, I mean, he was always there, ready, and you guys know this as well as anyone to pop up with a really important goal. He scored the winner at your place 2 seasons ago in the last minute, and to lose that and try and replace it, he's a very unique footballer. Jota the same. They were always in position to score goals, and losing that from your team without an absolute guaranteed performer at that level. With Pedro Neto's kind of come in to be Jota's replacement and Semedo Doherty's, and you can't necessarily see them filling that gap for the moment. So I worry about that. But if we are playing a different style, then the both of them wouldn't necessarily fit that way. So it's going to come from different sources. I really think Daniel Podence is going to be a really important player for this season. Neto's already scored one winner against Fulham. He is a really promising young talent, and he was probably our most potent threat against Leeds on Monday night. But Jimenez is still there as our reliable source. So we'll see how it goes. We do tend to struggle against you guys. Like I say, we haven't always looked the most threatening team over the course of the games that we've had against you guys. So, yeah, I'm not as confident as I might have been maybe at the start of the season before we had Jota and Doherty within the ranks, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the mood is quite glum at Newcastle at the minute. Obviously, you're a fan from the outside. You're not necessarily going to know, but can you understand why we're so sort of depressed?
I've got relatives in Newcastle. Believe me,
Oh, okay.
I'm well versed in the ways of being a kind of Geordie fan. It's I mean, I'd ask you when was the last time you were cheerful as a Newcastle fan before I'd ask you whether you're upset about things or not, because it feels like it's been such a long time since there's anything to really smile about, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't helped. I think this is across the board with football fans, but there is just a disconnect with football at the minute where it is harder to get excited when we're not going to games, where you're watching on a stream and your notification pops through 3 minutes before the goal and it is getting hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, and I find it too hard to just turn my phone over and not look at it, and then it'll vibrate and I know something's happened. So yeah, it is difficult at the minute. And even when we played Spurs and we got that ridiculous penalty, I almost wasn't excited because I thought that's such a stupid penalty for the good of football. I almost didn't want it. I was obviously still delighted and celebrated like mad when we scored, but it is difficult. And then on top of that, you've got a team which doesn't keep the ball, doesn't create chances, doesn't really do anything exciting other than Maximin doing an amazing run, skinning 8 players and then falling over. So yeah, it is difficult. And I mean, have you watched much Newcastle this year? Bit of an odd
Yeah,
team.
I mean, I probably watched your best game. I think was it against Burnley you won 2-0, was it?
Yeah, we were pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, all probably centered around Sam Maximan producing the goods with the goal and the assist. So, I mean, I understand exactly. I think you've actually done some decent business with the likes of Callum Wilson, Jamal Lewis, but it's just the limitations of what. Look, I always say this: good coaching brings out, so much more than we give it credit for. You look at the squad that Leeds have, and Marcelo Bielsa's done. That was a mid-table championship team when he arrived. It's still not, I don't think, that great a squad.
It's not at all.
Some
I mean,
Premier
they've
League
still got
squads.
Patrick Bamford up front, for God's sake. Like,
Exactly,
that's it.
It says a lot to be brave and go out and actually just, try and impact teams with your own style rather than be reactive. And I think that's where Newcastle will kind of come unstuck until you move on from, without sounding bad, Steve Bruce. It's
No, I think most fans would agree with you.
Guy,
Yeah, I was firmly in the camp of he's an all right guy. Let's give him a chance. But I've completely lost my way with him now. I just don't think he knows what he's doing. I think he is very good at putting his arm around players and making them feel loved. But I think it's at the expense of the rest of the squad. So Saint Maximin's just signed a new deal, says he loves it at the club, loves Steve Bruce, blah blah blah. But then you've got 10 other players alongside him who look useless. And you mentioned about good signings. We signed Ryan Fraser as well, who it's almost gone under the radar, but we were all buzzing to sign him, and then we're playing Jeff Hendrick on the wing and leaving Fraser on the bench. So it's a very odd time at the minute to be a Newcastle fan because we have the potential to be all right, but we're not quite there yet. And the way we've been under Bruce, we've just been stuffed by Man United. It wouldn't surprise me at all now if we turned it on against Wolves, played a blinder, won 2 or 3-0, and then we lose the next 4 games. So it's a hard one to predict. I mean, if you were Steve Bruce, I don't know why you would be, but how would you try and set the team up to beat Wolves?
Well, I think you generally seem to play a back three, don't you, at the moment? And I think the really important thing to do when it comes to us is stop our wing backs from having a real impact on the game high up the pitch. So then if you go in man to man and stopping Connor Cody switching the ball from his deep line kind of centre back position, you're doing something right. And within that, stopping the supply into Jimenez. If he's getting lots of touches, if our wing backs are getting lots of touches, then we're probably having a good game.
Yeah.
But vice versa, like I say, stop that supply line, and then you stand a chance.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, Jimenez, he only needs 1 touch to score. So if you're giving him 10, 20, and no team concedes more shots in the boxes than us, we're very much. And I think there was some stat which said both of our main centre backs have never been dribbled past all season, and I thought that was ridiculous. But I think it's just the Virgil van Dijk thing where you just back off onto the goal line and never let anyone run past you. So yeah, you're right. We were back 5, but because of injuries, we've kind of had to go to a more basic 4 at the back. And I do worry that, especially if you've got Traore coming off the bench and running at an absolutely knackered Jamal Lewis, I think it's only going to go one way. Like you said, we do have some creative players. In Callum Wilson, we do have a player who, if he gets a chance, he'll put it away, and we haven't had that since Dwight Gale in the Championship. So we've always got a chance now, which I wouldn't have said prior to signing him, but I feel like I'm so pessimistic at the minute. I can't see it going any other way. So I'm going to ask you for a prediction. I'm going to go first. I don't see us breaking down your defence. I think even though you've had to play Saiss at left back, he's got an unreal disallowed goal as well last week. I just don't see us breaking that defence down. I just see you guys penning us in. And if we do manage to create us a chance, you guys are so good on the break, you'll just tear us to pieces. And that's my personal opinion, which is awful to say for someone who's on a Newcastle fan channel. I'm going to say 2-0 Wolves, I think.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, but I'm going to say 1-0 just because I'm not convinced by our chance creation at the moment. So, yeah, you will probably sit a bit deeper again, and it doesn't suit us for teams to do that at the moment. So I'll go 1-0 Wolves with a bit of a scratchy goal, maybe.
A sort of a trademark 70th minute Jimenez tap in, probably.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, I think that's the banker. I think that's the banker of the weekend, isn't it? But yeah, I think that's fair. I'd love us both to be wrong because we probably do really need a win to avoid kind of going into the abyss because it's going to be a difficult season, I think, for everyone. I think everyone's going to get absolutely knackered, and we're already a few players down as well. So, yeah, that probably does it. Thanks for coming on. I know it was very short notice and it's very late on a Thursday, so I really appreciate you coming on, and all the best for the rest of the season.
Appreciate that, Andy. Thanks a lot, mate.
Take care, mate. Thanks.